and thank you so much for being here. Mr. Speaker, do you believe the government's going to shut down in 3 hours from now?
I think it is inevitable now. It's a very reckless decision that Chuck Schumer has made. The Democrats have taken the last vote. Within the last few hours, they voted it down once again, and so there's no other option. Now, it's important to note what they're doing here. They're throwing a fit. They're making partisan arguments. The House did its job. We sent to the Senate a clean CR. What that means, it's a very short stopgap funding measure so that the appropriators in Congress in both parties can continue their work of doing the appropriations bills, 12 separate bills. We've made a lot of progress in that. We just need a little more time because tonight is the end of the fiscal year. Chuck Schumer has refused to give the extra time. Why? Because we won't agree to restore health care to illegal aliens. Because we won't agree to give $500 million back to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. He wants to cut the big fund of $50 billion that we set aside to support and prop up rural hospitals in America. Because we won't agree to those partisan demands, and $1.5 trillion in new spending on a 7-week stopgap funding measure, he's decided to shut the government down. It's real pain for real Americans, and it's so frustrating.
I heard you make that first point at the White House yesterday after the meeting y'all had with the president and with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. People, as you know, people who are here in the United States legally have never been eligible for the Obamacare subsidies, for Medicare, for Medicaid. So what exactly are you saying that they're trying to do when you talk about giving free health care to them?
I'm so glad you asked. Okay, so when we passed the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Families Tax Cut, we had Medicaid reforms in the bill. You and I talked about it on the air. What we did was to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse. There were a lot of people on the program who were enrolled in the program who were never eligible to be there. Medicaid is intended for eligible U.S. citizens, not illegal aliens, not also U.S. citizens who are able-bodied workers like young men. So we passed the law. The president signed it into law. Democrats voted against it, of course, and it's been wildly successful. The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, which is the neutral arbiter of all these things, released a report a few weeks ago, earlier this month, and they said, you know what? The bill has had its intended purpose. Premiums are coming down, listen, because 2.3 million ineligible enrollees have been kicked off of Medicaid, which helps to save the program, prop it up. And $185 billion has been saved already in fraud, waste, and abuse.
So basically, what you did was narrow the eligibility for certain people to get access to the ACA subsidies. What they want to do is undo the changes that Republicans made in that. But basically, wouldn't that only affect people who do have legal status, people who are refugee seekers here in the United States, asylum seekers here?
Those are two totally different issues. Now, they've created this as a new argument that they have as to why they should not keep the government open, but they're arguing a December policy debate for a September funding issue. The subsidies that you're talking about don't expire until the end of December.
No. Those are the subsidies for just everyday Americans. That's one thing that obviously has been the main premise of their argument. But you're saying they want to give free health care to people who are in the United States illegally.
That is exactly what the effect will be.
But when I looked at it, there's a little nuance because they want to undo changes that y'all made, narrowing who is eligible to get that. Those are people who are refugee seekers, asylum seekers. They're not technically people who are here illegally, just cross the border.
No, this is exactly what will happen. And Maxine Waters admitted, I think accidentally today on the House steps, they want to give health care to everybody.
But Maxine Waters is not in charge. She's not the one. She didn't write this proposal.
She's one of the senior leaders in the House.
And
everybody should Google it and read their counter proposal
yourself. But you see
yourself.
my point, right? You're making this argument that they want to just give health care to everyone who's here illegally. This is not for people who cross the border and don't have paperwork. These are people who have temporary protected status, right?
No, absolutely what will happen if that counter proposal was enacted is illegal aliens would be paid for. American taxpayers, hard-earned dollars, would be paying for benefits for illegal aliens again. We're not doing that.
But it's against federal law for people who are here illegally to get
Yes,
health
and that's
care.
why our reforms are so important to enforce all that. What the important thing to remember is what's happening
I didn't see that in the
tonight.
Democratic proposal that people who are here illegally should get health care.
No, because they don't have the level of specification that we had in our bill. It will unwind that, and all those things that the CBO just verified will be reversed. We can't afford to do that.
But you see my point, that there's nuance in the argument that you're making, right?
No, that is a red herring in this debate. What they've decided to do tonight with their vote is to close the government. And what that means, everybody needs to understand, real pain for real Americans. What does that mean? It means women, infants, and children do not get their nutrition programs. That is not funded anymore. Veterans don't get their health care services, suicide prevention, and other very important things that are very timely. You have low-income persons who are Medicaid, Medicare recipients who are receiving care at home Those programs are now lapsed. They will not be funded.
Yeah, you're
you got
making a
troops
point about
not
what
paid,
happens if the
TSA
government
agents
shuts
not-
shuts
That's
down.
right, and they just decided to do it.
You're making a point about what happens if the government shuts
That's
down.
right, and they just decided to do it. So the only question tonight is, how long will Chuck Schumer keep the government closed? It's a dangerous gambit. It's something that he himself said his entire political career would be dangerous and disastrous. Roll the tape. We're rolling the greatest hits on our social media.
Yeah, I'm just saying that the point about giving people who are here illegally health care is not exactly what is in their proposal.
No, it is 100% what their
immigrants
proposal.
who have legal status,
No,
and you're just
Caitlin, you're
disagreeing
wrong.
on who's eligible. I
I'm
looked
not.
at it, actually, because I was curious about your argument yesterday.
You should study the CBO's analysis that they just put out a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I saw
and
that
you
about
should-
the 1.2 million people. You're basically arguing about who has legal status, people who are seeking refuge here or
no, I'm
seeking
not.
asylum.
No, I'm making sure that we are making sure in our provisions that we signed into law have ensured that health care benefits go only to eligible U.S. citizens.
Right,
Chuck
as
Schumer's
is federal
proposal.
law.
Federal law was not being enforced. That's the whole point. We had to fine-tune that so that we could strengthen the health care program. That's what we did.
On this premise of how long this shutdown could go on, the longest one was 35 days. You were a member then, you were not the House Speaker then. How long do you believe this could go on?
I hope it's very short because real Americans are going to suffer. It's going to be a hardship for a lot of people. And Chuck Schumer holds all the cards because all he has to do is do what he's done, by the way, 13 times during the previous 4 years of the Biden administration. 13 times we avoided a shutdown. We were in the minority party many of those times. We voted and did the responsible right thing to keep the government open. We're asking Chuck Schumer to do the same thing he did his entire career. He's been here half my life. This is the first time ever he's wanted to shut it down, and I'll tell you why. Because Chuck Schumer is in a political fight. He's fighting for his political life. The last time he did the responsible thing, the far left came after him. AOC is going to challenge him.
Yeah,
in the
he was
Senate
criticized by a lot of his own members.
Yeah.
You're talking about how painful a government shutdown today could be. Today, the president said that he thinks some good things could come from a government shutdown. What are the good things that would come from a shutdown?
Well, the administration has to make some very tough choices. They have to determine at the Office of Management and Budget what are essential services, what are the programs that should be prioritized, personnel decisions, policy decisions. Chuck Schumer has just given the White House unilateral authority to make those permanent decisions about programs that should survive and those that should be eliminated. So he's sort of walked into a political trap on that as well.
The president framed it as a good thing that could come out of this. You're saying it's a tough choice. That's not how he described it.
No, it's both.
Today.
There are good things that could come out of it. If you eliminate wasteful programs that we otherwise would not get Democrat votes to do, that's a very good thing for the taxpayers. But the harm that comes is from the people who need food assistance, medical assistance. FEMA won't be funded, by the way. We're in the middle of our hurricane season. If your health insurance or your flood insurance is lapsed, no new policies, no renewals, none of that can happen during a shutdown. It's real danger for real people. This is not a game.
Yeah, well, the president has previously talked about eliminating FEMA potentially before this shutdown happened. But can I ask you in terms of...
He wants to reform FEMA.
You're talking about the president could pick programs that they would basically stop, right, if this shutdown commences.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Has a president ever, during a government shutdown, eliminated programs just because there was a government shutdown?
I'd have to go study the history of it, but I'll tell you the government's never been so big and bloated as it is today. It's completely, it's too large, it does too many things, and it does almost nothing well. There's a lot of reform-minded people in the administration who would like to streamline government. So would conservatives, so would all of us. Not in a way that disenfranchises or hurts anybody, but in a way that makes government work more efficiently and effectively for the people. That's what our legislation has done. That's what the Big Beautiful Bill was about, and we'd love to continue that theme. And if Chuck Schumer wants to keep the government shut down and give the White House full authority to do that, some good things may come out of that, indeed.
As a constitutional lawyer, do you think you would be okay if a government shutdown happened under President Biden and he canceled programs unilaterally because of it?
We didn't allow that to happen because I'm more responsible than that. When the Republicans were in the minority, we delivered the votes to keep the government open because we don't want to hurt the American people. Chuck Schumer has made the decision unilaterally. He's the leader of the Democrats in the Senate to keep the government shut down for his own personal reasons. It is extremely selfish and stunning to me that he is willing to do that. There's no way out of the trap. We didn't put partisan provisions in the CR. We could have. I could have loaded that up with all of our partisan policy preferences, but I didn't because we're operating in good faith. The reason we need, again, just the short-term extension to November 21st is to allow the appropriators to do their job. They need more time to do it in a bipartisan fashion, by the way. They agreed, Republicans and Democrats agreed, November 21st would be the appropriate date to extend it. That's all we're asking for is time.
And are they just using their leverage like a position that he once held?
Well, unfortunately for Chuck Schumer, he doesn't have willing partners on the other side. There's no game to play here. The White House, the president, the vice president, we were all in the Oval Office together yesterday. Leader Thune, I, the Republican leadership in the Senate and the House and the White House are completely unified on this. There's no daylight between us. We want to keep the government open to serve the people. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have decided to close it. We'll see how long this standoff continues, but it's real people that get harmed in the process.
Leader Thune said earlier today that he's not going to negotiate until the government is back open. Is that your position as well with Hakeem Jeffries?
Yeah, look, there's plenty of time to debate these policy issues and extraneous matters, but you have to have the government open first. It's the first most important responsibility of Congress to keep the government operating for the people, and the Democrats have decided not to do that.
But so is that your position, that unless the government is open, that you're not going to go negotiate with them either?
Yes, there's nothing to negotiate. There literally is nothing I can pull out of the CR to make it better. It is a nonpartisan CR that they've already voted for. Chuck Schumer already voted for this exact measure in March and said at the time it was the right thing to do. The only thing that changed between now and then is he's in more political jeopardy.
Well, they've also argued because of the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill. But can I ask you...
Nonsense. Look at the facts.
That's the Democrats' argument. Can I ask you, earlier today, a Democrat came up to you, Congresswoman Madeline Dean from Pennsylvania, and basically she described it as confronting you over a post by the president last night of Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer after y'all's meeting at the White House. She was asking you if you believed it was racist and said that you should call it out. What is your description of what happened in that interaction?
So, as I always do, I'm the Speaker of the House, so I represent Republicans and Democrats in that capacity, and I always hear complaints and concerns from members, and I always stop and hear that. And I did that for Madeline Dean. I respect her as an individual. We disagree on every policy matter. And she was concerned about a social media post of the president who he meant as a joke. And we talked about that. I told her I disagreed with her perspective on it. But I tried to bring her back to the real issue. The fight tonight is not about social media posts. The fight is about whether they're going to keep the government open for the American people. And she's one that voted against that in the House. Quite literally 2 weeks ago when we pushed this measure through the House, the CR, the clean CR, she voted no. Every Democrat in the House except one voted no. They voted to close the government. And I wanted my friend Madeline to understand the importance of that. She herself had said many times in the past that closing the government would be dangerous for the people. And suddenly they've changed their tune, and I don't understand why.
One argument, she was arguing that it was a racist post. One argument that we've also seen from Democrats is that House Republicans should be here because House Democrats are here. Hakeem Jeffries has described it as they've been sent on vacation. Do you have any plans to bring them back anytime soon?
Of course. Everybody will be back next week. We have the Jewish high holiday of Yom Kippur on Wednesday and Thursday. We were never intended or scheduled to be in session on those days. There's always honored holidays every year, so Friday would really be the only day to do any legislative business. But if the government shut down, there's not a big point. There's not a lot of floor activity that can be had until we open the government again. So the House has done its job. Everybody's home working in their districts right now. They'll be back next week, of course, and we'll see what happens. I'm very hopeful that over the next few days, the Democrats in the Senate will come to their senses. Leader Thune is going to put the bill on the floor repeatedly and give them more and more chances. You saw tonight, a couple of more Democrats peeled off. They don't want to be a part of this. They don't want to be blamed for the government shutdown. And I hope more of them come to their senses. I certainly hope and pray that that happens by early next week, and we can all get back to the people's business here. That's the plan.
House Speaker Mike Johnson, in your words, we will see what happens and if we're here next week.
Right.